We want more babies to be born in America. We want more babies. We need them. We need them.
The noises from the White House couldn't be clearer.
I want more happy children in our country. And I want beautiful young men and women who are eager to welcome them into the world and eager to raise them.
There is a push in America for more births and babies, with something called pronatalism being promoted in the face of population decline.
I really want to have as many kids as possible, and I hopefully can break the world record for number of C-sections. Woo!
People really want us to die for wanting to continue the human race. You know, Simone and I proposed to her on Reddit. Like, we have an inherent resistance to all this.
And they are Simone and Malcolm Collins, two of the leaders of the pronatalism movement in the States. Do you know what that is? I didn't really, until I tracked them down in the US and had a chat with them. I'm Lucy Watson, and this is definitely what you need to know. So just describe the scene, where you live, the kind of environment you're in, how many children you've got, and the size of your family, really.
We have 4 kids. Number 5 is on the way, and our oldest is 5 years old. We live in a farmhouse in Pennsylvania, built in around 1790. We hope to have as big of a family as possible. We're going to try to have a kid every 18 months until I can no longer have kids.
That was what I was going to ask you. How many children do you want? And do you have a limit? A limit on your body, a limit on your age?
There is no upper limit to the number of kids we would want. While we have basically enough embryos to have the size of the family we want, I am forced now to only have C-sections because I've had only C-sections for every single delivery. And the Guinness Book of World Records top number of C-sections at present is 11. So I'd love to push 12, 13, 14, but who knows? There's, every time I go into a pregnancy, an increasingly high chance that I lose my uterus in the process.
Does that not scare you, Simone?
No, I think, one, I have a lot of faith in my surgeons. They're amazing people. And 2, this is so important to us that I wouldn't hesitate to get an unexpected hysterectomy or lose a lot of blood in a surgery if I can, through doing that, bring a whole new life and their whole range of experiences and joys and impacts into the world.
So you're not worried at all about potentially dying in your pursuit of having more and more children? I mean, I'm looking at Malcolm and he's laughing.
I have this conversation with her. I'm like, Simone, you know, you could die. Like, are you really this committed? And she's like, Malcolm, you know what's, I'm like, okay.
So what is it that is so important to you that you carry on having children?
There are a variety of reasons. Of course, we love our children deeply, and it's really hard to look into our kids' eyes and see them play together and see all their potential and not want to bring more of that into this world. It is one of the greatest blessings and privileges that we could imagine. But we're also big public advocates for pronatalism, which is supporting kids and believing in a bright future and trying to make it easier for those who want to have kids or more kids to do so. Plus, raising awareness about demographic collapse, which is one of the biggest existential threats to civilization that our generation faces.
I think a lot of people, when they hear pronatalism, they think, oh, we want to increase the world's population forever. This is a bit like hearing somebody is fighting global warming and then imagining that they're like Mr. Freeze was like a freeze gun trying to freeze the whole planet. It's like, no, they're pointing to a statistical trend on a line and saying, hey, if we don't address this, many of the systems that we have in place, you know, economically, geopolitically, are going to break, and it's likely going to lead to hundreds of millions of deaths, even within our own lifetime. And so we are trying to draw attention to it.
So what is the problem that US is facing? Not producing enough children? Population decline?
So in the United States, comparatively well-off demographic situation, there's 1.8 dependents for each taxpayer. As the population gets older, because people are having fewer kids, that number will shrink over time. And typically when that number gets to around the 1.5 range, systems start to break down. And when I say systems start to break down, I'm talking about Social Security, welfare, Medicaid, all of these social safety nets, they become economically unviable. And it is horrifying to me that people who claim to care about disenfranchised and vulnerable populations aren't taking this issue seriously, because those are the populations that are going to be impacted most by this.
So, Simone, what would you say that your mission was?
Our mission more broadly is to protect long-term human flourishing. And this is a larger view that's held within the pronatalist movement on the whole, which is comprised of like techno-optimists who are very into IVF and genetic testing like we are, but also very staunch religious conservatives who honestly think that IVF involves killing babies. So these are very ideologically different groups. The one thing that we all care about and share is that we believe that the future is bright and we want there to be humans in the future and we want those humans to flourish.
Can I ask you what your kids are called?
Yeah, we have a lot of fun with kids' names. Our oldest is Octavian George, followed by Torsten Savage, followed by Titan Invictus, and then Industry Americus. And we very intentionally choose strange names for our kids. We like powerful names. We like unique and distinctive names because we want them to know that they're not part of what we refer to as the urban monoculture, which is sort of mainstream culture in developed societies. We think that is a culture that not only is memetically sterilizing, meaning that people who are a part of it have inherently low birth rates, but it also produces really bad rates of mental health. You see really high anxiety and depression and all these other issues with young people that are a part of the mainstream culture now. Even kids within that mainstream urban monoculture make fun of them and bully them, the better, because we don't want them to feel a part of this.
You want your kids to be bullied because they're different?
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely,
We
yeah.
want our kids to know that they're a part of a different culture and to feel proud of it. And also for our culture to be more fun than the mainstream culture, which right now it definitely is.
And within this diverse community of pronatalists, I'll be honest, because I used to be a progressive, Simone used to be a progressive, she grew up in San Francisco. I thought that these people would not be as welcoming as they are to people with diverse viewpoints, but they have been the kindest, most welcoming community I have ever seen. And I feel so honored to be a part of this movement. And if we are the movement that's going to replace you, the people of the world today, I'm glad that we are. People are often like, oh, you must want these dinks, these dual income, no kids, to have tons of kids and stuff like that. And we're like, no. They don't seem like they'd add much to humanity's future. We're okay with this group. Let's just try to get the fertility higher in this group.
But you have experienced real negativity as well, though, haven't you, for this?
Oh yeah, we get death threats like every few days. People really want us to die for wanting to continue the human race. And it's
Worse than
it's
that
weird,
is that they want our children to die. Like recent comments that we've received or that they hope that I have a miscarriage in this current pregnancy. And that just gets dark.
Oh, I mean, how do you feel when you receive something like that or comments like that? People talk to you like that? People have wished that upon you?
That's not okay. That crosses the line, absolutely. But at the same time, the opinions of these people who are inherently antinatalist don't matter. They're not going to represent themselves in the future. So it's almost like talking to someone who is already terminally ill and about to die, who's going to leave no legacy or impact.
So, Simone, what do you think perhaps this administration needs to do to move the needle on this and address this, what I've seen called the birth dearth?
One of the most important things that the administration is doing vis-a-vis demographic collapse is working very hard to increase revenue and to decrease spending through DOGE, which is very important when it comes to staving off the acceleration of demographic collapse. In terms of prenatalist policy, we love that they started by looking at ways to make IVF more affordable. And we have submitted a couple of policy recommendations in the form of draft
I knew that you'd
orders.
made proposals to the government. What were in your proposals then?
Yes, the one that got picked up that I guess everyone finds to be so controversial is this idea of giving a motherhood medal to mothers who've had and are raising 6 or more children. I think it's very ironic, very misogynistic ultimately, that while the US government gives presidential medals of honor to people who dedicate their careers and make great sacrifices to advance technology, science, the humanities, and the arts, and of course they give medals to people who've achieved great military things, but there's no recognition to women who've sacrificed their careers and in many cases put their health at risk to give birth to a lot of children and raise them. That's insane. We've also recommended a lot more, we'll say, boring sounding things like removing a marriage tax penalty, which really is hit by or slapped onto most middle class couples who get married in the United States. They end up paying more in taxes for getting married, which is a huge precursor to having kids and also living a life in which you're thriving. We are advocating for encouraging lighter regulation on daycare centers, which would make daycare more affordable and more widely available, reduced car seat regulation, and some other very no-nonsense policies that basically remove the regulatory foot off the neck of families.
What about, I put the idea out in a more kind of conventional way, perhaps, that, what in terms of, increasing population, subsidies for families, economic policies that are more relevant, help with childcare. That's a massive thing here. And a relaxation to immigration to improve this birth rates. Do you not think they're more likely to be options?
Not really. So immigration is one of those band-aids that feels like it might work, that doesn't ultimately. So first, it's kind of unethical to drain other countries of their working capital and their wonderful workers and the people that they've invested in educating just to fund our non-working population. More than that, though, depending on what country we're looking at and what the immigrant populations are doing, not all immigrant populations are contributing to the tax base. Some of them are more neutral, some of them are drains, and some are slight contributors. But if we're, for example, only accepting very high tax revenue generating immigrants, then we're draining those people from other countries who also need those. I mean, while Africa has great fertility rates right now, they're dropping more quickly than expected by the UN's numbers, and they're going to keep dropping.
Simone, how many children do you imagine you'll have in 10 years?
In 10 years' time, I would love to have 12 kids. 14 kids, as many kids as I can. I really, 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 really want to have as many kids as possible, and I hopefully can break the world record for number of C-sections. Woo!
So that was the Collins family. And it's important, I suppose, to put that conversation in a political context. Theirs is, no doubt, a unique approach. But nevertheless, it's an idea that is getting traction inside the White House, not least because one of its biggest champions is father of 14, Elon Musk.
The birth rate is very low in almost every country. And it's something, unless that changes, civilization will disappear. America had the lowest birth rate, I believe, ever. That was last year. Places like Korea, the birth rate is 1/3 replacement rate. So that means in 3 generations, Korea will be 3 or 4% of its current size. And nothing seems to be turning that around. Humanity is dying.
So let's go to DC now, where our Washington producer, Aisha Karala, is ready to help us through all this. First of all, Aisha, how important has Musk really been to this pronatalism movement?
Yeah, I mean, anyone you speak to in this movement, whether they love him or hate him for what he's doing, they have so much respect for Elon Musk for putting this on the agenda. He's known for DMing girls, asking them to have his babies, and he's got around 14 children that we know of. Tech bros have always been interested in self-improvement, and they have been investing in it when it comes to, the quest for immortality, swapping your blood. They have always been interested in how technology can improve quality of life.
Is the birth rate, or are the birth rates in the US as big an issue as they're making out? What is the problem that they're trying to solve, essentially?
It is undeniable that birth rates are an issue in the US. We have seen since around 2008, since the recession, birth rates have started to go down in the US. But what has really, triggered these alarm bells in this kind of conversation is the fact that financial systems are looking like they're going to collapse. So specifically Social Security, there's data out that in the year 2035, more people will be taking out from Social Security than they are going to be putting in. And it means, the kind of benefits that the state is supposed to offer people will no longer exist.
So, Aisha, their concerns are valid, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, completely valid. The differentiation is like, why do you care? Do you care because we're starting to see less families? Do you care because GDP could go down? Do you care because there's not going to be a workforce? That's where the nuances are, and the nuances, how do we solve it?
What are the causes?
It's not that women don't want to have children, fertility rates are still high. It's just that they're saying not now. If you can't pay your bills, you can't pay rent, like, do you really want to have a child?
So if we get to the nuts and bolts of it all, what is the hard policy on it? I know you've been chatting to a lady called Emma Waters, who's a policy analyst at the Heritage Foundation. That is a conservative think tank, and she describes herself as part of the pro-family camp of pronatalism. What movement has she been able to see, or reading between the lines, from the Trump administration on this, do you think?
She was particularly interested in the executive order that Trump signed, the infertility executive order in around February, and guidance is due in May. And so, according to her, we're going to start to see iterations of how the government is planning to, increase babies within the US. But we also have started to see, some headline grabbing statements like a baby bonus of $5,000 if you have a child, or a medal for mums who have 6 kids or more.
That was one of the suggestions that Simone said she made.
It's not really, when you think about the reasons people aren't having kids, they're not going to be like, great, I can have a medal. Like, as if you can't afford it.
Although I definitely think I deserve 2 for my contribution to humanity.
Interestingly, Emma really flagged the fact that the dismantling of the Department of Education was a really clear sign that this administration is pro-family, because it's trying to empower families to, control and like raise their children the way they want.
President Trump's administration is the most pro-family administration of my lifetime. I expect that we'll see changes in our child tax credit, potentially expanding that to return more to parents. Then more than that, I expect we're just going to see lots of things in this space that are tailored toward the well-being of the family.
Now, I know the US supports IVF, and Donald Trump has actually even said, hasn't he, about making it free. Is that right?
Yes, but there are other people in the pronatalist movement who are more pro-family and are not really big supporters of IVF, predominantly because they say it doesn't actually help in terms of increasing birth rates. It's kind of unclear how much, the administration is going to push on it, or whether, when we start to talk about like birth control and that kind of conversation, it's something that could actually maybe just be used to placate others.
If you speak to critics, they say that pronatalism can verge or overlap with a bit of misogyny as well as racism. Would you say that was fair, or what do you think, Asha?
Yeah, I mean, it's impossible to label one whole movement as, racist or misogynistic, but we have to be careful when we start to talk about, birth rates declining and, people being, worried about what the future of American civilization looks like, because you have to think about who else talks about that. And, the great replacement theory that the whole of America is going to be replaced by immigrants. And if we don't keep having more babies, we're going to lose our culture, is something that you see consistently from the far, far right, that white American culture could be replaced.
And did you put that to Emma?
Yeah, I put it to her, and she, spoke a lot about how actually it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you come from, as long as you are here for American values and you're here for American families, they welcome you with open arms.
I think it's an inclusive movement. There are many pro-family pronatalists who are not white, right? Who are immigrants into the United States, but really care about creating a better life for their children. And what's so interesting in this discussion is when you look at declining birth rates in the United States, minority groups, so Hispanic, Blacks, Asians, are actually seeing lower birth rates than anyone else. And so when we talk about this pro-family movement, we're actually focused on those demographics in particular, saying, hey, like, you want to have more children, you're having fewer children than ever before, how can we help you?
Where do you see this going, Aisha?
I have no idea. I mean, it's definitely going to be in the administration. That is for sure. We are seeing, JD Vance being this kind of spokesperson for the modern family, taking his kids away, whether they're tired. We're just seeing children around. And I think that when you talk about the economic concerns that are underlying this real push, they're not going away. It doesn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican, you care about this issue.
Aisha, thank you very much indeed. It is absolutely fascinating. It is a movement that unites family values, conservatives, and the tech bros. So who knows where it could go next? Maybe even the UK. Well, that is it for this special edition of What You Need to Know. Remember, you can subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. And you can watch full episodes on YouTube, Spotify, and ITVX. Until next time, thanks for joining me.